Okay, welcome everybody to another evening with Brian. Tonight's topic is the ADARA Meditation, which is by far and away one of my favorite workshops that I've had the privilege to spend time with Brian and be involved in. And I'm sure we're in for a very informative, beautiful evening as always. And I know the ADARA is one of Brian's favorite topics also to talk about. So he's obviously going to delve into exactly what it is. But if anyone's watching this on a replay, or if anyone's on the call and they don't know who Brian is, we'll link to a couple of different videos in the description of this video when it's posted. But Brian is essentially an author, an inspirational speaker, philosopher, holistic natural therapist, you name it. He's provided a framework over the last 30 years to bring anything and everything together, and it's going to be exciting listening to him tonight to fill in the gaps where a lot of what people are missing when it comes to meditation, and exactly what that is and why that is. And without any further ado, I think I'll hand over to Brian. And just before that, throughout the call, if you haven't been on Zoom before, feel free to pop any comments or questions in the little chat box that you'll be able to find. Depending whether you're on a phone or computer, I'm sure you'll find it there, but pop your questions in the chat. And if there's anything that you'd love to come on and share in the moment, just pop your hand up and we'll unmute you, and you can have a chat with Brian, and there'll be Q&A at the end as always. So Brian, thanks again for being with us, and looking forward to another lovely evening.
Hi everybody, and thanks for the intro, Mark. Brilliant as usual. Just getting a cup of tea served to me.
I'm waiting on mine.
Yeah, sorry, I've just had a bit of a delay getting started. Everything was looking good to do it on my PC, but I couldn't get audio to work for some reason, so I've just had to quickly change back to my phone. So, yeah, so do you have the PowerPoint linked on your Mac there, Mark? Do you have any of the slides?
Let me have a look. I don't think I've got any of the ADARA slides on.
Oh, okay. I had everything sorted, ready to go, and then
yeah,
last glitch, and I couldn't figure it out. So,
how big is it?
Oh, it's a couple of 100 megabytes, I think.
Yeah, okay, so no good for.
It doesn't matter. I'll have to talk around it.
Yeah, look, I've got the charts. I've got the workbook.
Oh yeah. Well, if you've got the charts, I'll refer to those shortly.
So I've got the metaphysical practice and the visualization exercise charts. So that'll probably be good to work with, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if there's anything you need me to bring up out of the book, I can, I guess.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll just change those all of my slides here is prompting. Alrighty. Well, what we're going to cover tonight is rather contentious. Sorry. All right. So what we're going to cover tonight, it's probably going to upset a lot of people, and as everybody who knows me already understands, I don't mind upsetting people because it makes people think, and the more they think, the more they tend to discover the truth about things. Those of you who don't know too much about me, I'll just quickly explain how and why I'm talking about this specific topic. When I was younger, I had a head injury and it made me dyslexic, and I wasn't able to function very well in society. So is everybody able to hear me okay?
You're all good on this end, Brian. Okay. So, yep.
All right. So I just had my own audio problem there. Yeah, so as a result of the head injury, I was extremely dysfunctional, and I ended up going and living in India away from all the pressures of this society. And I ended up spending time with 9 masters, and they were spiritual masters. Then I also spent time with yogis and Tai Chi masters, and like on the spiritual masters. And between all of them, they explained to me the laws, dynamics, and processes associated with navigating consciousness. And what I'm going to talk to you tonight about is how meditation is actually to shift your state of consciousness and not just change your state of mind or your state of being. And that's where what's being sold and marketed as meditation today in the modern world has very little to do with what true meditation is all about. And unfortunately, I don't have all the PowerPoints that I was going to go through tonight with you, but to share with you. But I'll give you a summary of it anyway. So the yogis that I spent time with, they were emphatic about being able to consciously connect to the true nature of life, which happens to be the title of my book. And there's ways in which you can consciously and deliberately do that. And when you look at what's being taught as meditation and being promoted as being able to do that, actually can't. And I don't want to sound arrogant or anything here. I always run the risk of misrepresenting myself with what I say and what I do. But I'm speaking from 35 years of experience where 80% of my clients are doctors, practitioners, therapists. A lot of them are yoga teachers, meditation teachers, psychologists, healers, you name it. And they've all been taught and learnt, or even teaching some form of meditation or some healing practice. And when I ask them very direct questions about the nature of what they're doing, they simply can't answer. So they're predominantly teaching and sharing from a level of theory and philosophy and not direct awareness of these laws, dynamics, and processes that governs reality. So if you're not consciously aware of how things actually work, it's mainly the how. When I talk about information, it's what, when, how, where, why, and who. So it's actually the how. And if they don't know how to consciously align and connect with the flow of information within themselves or connect with a source of information externally, then they're simply not empowered. It's a bit like what I talk about with the intuitive process, how the Tibetan masters that confirmed all the laws, dynamics, and processes feeding into that experience. How if it's not done consciously and deliberately, a person's simply not empowered. So then, so what I'm talking about is how to distinguish what is and what isn't meditation. And when you look at the charts that I'll get Mark to share with you shortly, because I don't actually have any here because I've given them all away. So what I do is I very clearly define all the factors that either contribute to meditation, which are beneficial or detrimental to the state of meditation. And along the way, what I've done is I've defined the 6 facilitation exercises that feed into all the different techniques of meditation. And when I ask people to explain to me what they know as meditation, essentially they don't even come close to what I'm talking about. Most of them are predominantly explaining to me some form of relaxation exercise or a mental exercise. And just so as you know where I'm going with all this, long term, I want to be able to put all this information out for free. And I'm on the verge of doing it sooner rather than later, because as you know, I've got this term that I affectionately use. It's called the fuck it point. And if I can't do events to pay my bills and all the rest of it, I may also just put all this information out for free while people are in lockdown. So it gives them a chance to connect with the material and digest the information to the point where it can become part of their reality. And most people, when you inquire deeply into the how or the why of what they're doing with meditation, they usually end up falling very short. They fall short by a long way of actually giving them the conscious experience of it. So they're not transcending the need to think about it. They're not. A lot of people I talk to about the meditation, they can actually drop into the state, whereas most people spend a lot of time going through the processes so they can connect with the state. But once you actually understand the nature of that state, you can drop into it instantly. Right? And when you go into the state instantly, you can keep going deeper and deeper into the state. I talk about going into the depths of things, which is like the Mandelbrot set. For those of you that know the Mandelbrot set, you can keep going into it infinitely. And I think I might just share with everybody. I am a little bit fuzzy around the edges again today because I had a late night last night, and I was, those of you that know my term, I was on vacation. So I was did some plant medicines yesterday, and I took a big dose, and I got shown a lot of things, and I'm still heavily processing that. So I'm not that articulate or verbally fluent tonight because I've still got a lot going on in the background. So I'll share with you more about that later in terms of how I'm getting all the inspirations from what I'm doing, both within meditation, plant medicines, and all doing all the breathing exercises and that sort of thing. And as well as being multidimensional, being able to communicate with the people like the indigenous spirits, like the nuncaries and that sort of stuff. And that came up a lot last night. So there's essentially what I'm talking about is being able to bring into conscious awareness the true nature of things. So you can then individualize exactly what it is that you need for where you're at. A lot of people overestimate who they are and where they're at within things. So they're practicing techniques which are well beyond them. Yeah, it's like I do a neurological test on a martial artist, and they still fail the test at the infant level, but they're still like a second Dan black belt or something. So when I show them how that relates in their stance, you can push them over with one finger, right? Because they're not neurologically integrated to be using the correct pathways in the stances, which gives them the strength, that indomitable strength. Yeah. So the things that feed into everybody's potential is how well they can consciously go into the 6 facilitation exercises that gives them the ability to meditate, right? And I'm just going to read through what the 6 facilitations exercises are. The 6 facilitation exercises help you align and connect with the state, and then it helps you deepen the state once you get into it.
Do you want me to put those up, Brian, on the chart?
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you able to do that?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Yeah, good. So these 6 facilitation exercises, this is primarily what people are doing as meditation, but the meditation is where these exercises actually take you to, right? So, yeah, the first one is breathing exercises, and this is one of the charts that comes with the ADARA meditation. Actually, we'll start with saying the ADARA meditation, it came from me compiling and condensing all the teachings from the masters, as well as all the other techniques that I'd studied and learnt of meditation, all the books that I read, every single thing that I learnt from martial arts and yoga and Tai Chi. If you condense the essence of what they all do to use, what they use to change your state of mind or your state of being, and you shift your state of consciousness, I've brought all of that together into these 6 facilitation exercises. Every form of meditation uses one or more in combination of these 6 facilitation exercises. So this chart, I've got the list 6 of the exercises, 6 exercises listed on the left. The middle is a very clear definition, and then I've got some examples of each one of them. I've got 6 examples of each. So I'm not going to go through it in too much detail. But the breathing exercises, in the book, The Nature of Life, I explain how there's 12 factors of breathing, like the depth, the duration, the intensity, and so on, right? So how you breathe determines your overall state of being, right? Your state of mind, your level of consciousness, and so on. So there's with each of these 6 facilitation exercises, I'm just going to explain more for those who already know my material. There is a top down and bottom up perspective to each one of them, right? So you can be doing the breathing exercises from a bottom up perspective, like the Wim Hof, or you can be doing it with Qi Kung, where you're channeling divine energy from the top down, right? So with the relaxation exercises, these exercises are primarily used where you direct the senses towards alleviating tension in the body, tension in the mind and body, right? So that's essentially what they're for. Then there's imaginings. These are forming mental images, which are positive in nature. Then there's visualizations. This is where you experience and express the empowered state, right? This is where you're in the divine state of being. This is a supernatural state. So visualizing walking on water or flying like a bird, whereas this is where people have to get a clear distinction between imaginings Imaginings is where if I said to you, imagine walking into a beautiful garden and you feel yourself relax, that's imaginings. But I imagine if you're a supernatural being and you create a beautiful garden, that's a visualization, right? So then the next one is mental exercises, where you focus the mind on a single task, whether this is the breathing or a mudra or a mantra. It doesn't really matter. It's just single-mindedly focusing the mind on one exercise. And then there's physical exercises. So those 6 exercises are listed in order of priority. All right. So you cannot do any relaxation exercises unless you're breathing properly according to the 12 factors of breathing. So then you can't do imaginings if you aren't breathing properly and relaxed. And then you can't visualize unless you're breathing properly, relaxed, and using your mind in the correct way to imagine getting into a supernatural state, and then the visualization is the expression of that. So then there's no point doing mental exercises unless you've already done the previous 4. And then the 6th one is where you're putting all that into physical expression through the body. It's like when I was doing Tai Chi, a lot of people used to say to me, I want to do Tai Chi, and I would ask them why, and they'd say, so I can learn to relax and be at peace. And I'd say, well, the Taoist Tai Chi that I did was the opposite to that. You would be at peace and relaxed and then do the Tai Chi as an expression of that, the effortlessness of it, right? So the way I'm looking at it is within the order of those 6 exercises, that's the order in which you approach them, right? So those exercises can help you align and connect with the meditative state, which is what I'm going to talk about shortly, or it can deepen the meditative state. They themselves are not meditation. They are what brings you to the meditative state. And this is what's very clear, is when you're talking to people who are using every single meditation technique uses a combination of those 6 facilitation exercises. And depending on the level of the meditation course or whatever that you're teaching, they will be doing either a top down or bottom up, or a combination of both, right? What I'm doing with the ADARA meditation is helping everybody become consciously aware of exactly what facilitation exercise they need, whether they need to do it from the top down or bottom up perspective, and which combinations they need to do and the duration of each one. All right, so if you've just been out gardening and you've been straining with a pick and shovel or something like that, you may need to physically relax, and to actually get to the depth of the relaxation, you need to be able to meditate. You may need to reset your breathing by using the 12 factors of breathing, right? So then if you've been sitting in an office all day and you've been stagnant, then you may have to get outside and do some Tai Chi or some yoga, which is a physical exercise, and you may have to focus on being in a visualization, doing visualizations while you're doing it, just to get your energies expanding and out of that claustrophobic feeling of being indoors. So this is where, when I've been teaching the ADARA meditation, I make this very clear that the other forms of meditation, they don't consciously take you into the meditative state, which is what I'm about to share. So I've had people come up to me later and say, what do you think about this technique? What do you think about that technique? But they clearly haven't understood that, yes, everything's appropriate when it's appropriate. I'm not dismissing that at all. But nearly every meditation technique that I've looked at hasn't consciously taken a person to the meditative state. They've just helped people refine these exercises to whatever degree. And there's a lot of techniques that are, as far as I'm concerned, a bottomless pit of distraction. And I'm not very fond of transcendental meditation, right? I'm going to upset a lot of people here, but I simply don't care, because what happens is, when I ask people who are teaching meditation, who have been practicing meditation for a long time, I ask them the question, are you at peace, yes or no? And if they say no, then what they're doing and how they're doing it isn't working, right? So if you all agree that peace is our natural state, and the intent of meditation is to return ourselves to our natural state and permanently stay there, So then we can experience and express the true depths of living that state on earth and sharing it with everybody. Then if the techniques that we're using within meditation are not helping us arrive at that state, then it's just a theory and philosophy. It's not a conscious tool. So this is where eventually I'm in the process of condensing all this into a book. I've just got somebody who's just gone through all the videos and audios of my events. I've got 8 different events that we're condensing down in all the best bits out of all of them, and I'm putting it all into a book. So that's hopefully going to be the next book after this next one I'm about to publish. So the ADARA meditation, the ADARA stands for honor. So can you honor the laws, dynamics, and processes within every moment of your life that are actually universal, divine, and natural laws, dynamics, and processes? So if we're not in sync with those, that flow of those energies, those of you that know the material, you've got the experience, expression, evolution, form, function, and flow. So if you're not in the flow of those laws, dynamics, and processes at work in, through, and around you at all time, then you won't be at peace. Right? So these 6 facilitation exercises will help you know what energies have gone out of balance within you and how to return to that peace, right? And I ask people, are you at peace, yes or no? Most people say no. And then I ask them, what would it take for you to be at peace? And they say, I don't know, right? I asked somebody yesterday, what would it take for you to be at peace? And they said, a lot. And I said, is it true that peace is available to you now? And they said, yes. Is it true that there's nothing stopping you from being at peace? And they said, no one other than myself, right? So this is where people have built up, they've constructed all these belief systems around how and why they can't be at peace. And it becomes like a dangling carrot that they're in pursuit of, and they never ever quite achieve it, because the conditioning and programming that we've gone through is keeping us on that eternal hamster wheel and the merry-go-round. So so these 6 facilitation exercises help you consciously and deliberately break that habit of having to think about everything before you do it, rather than just being at peace and being in the flow, being full to overflowing with your divine qualities, your divine feelings, and acting them, putting them into action. Yeah. So this is where you're fully able to be and then do all that you're here to do. Right. So those 6 facilitation exercises are the key to the ADARA meditation. And then do you have the conscious and dualistic state, the enlightenment process chart there, Mark?
The session 1. Yep.
Yep.
Yes, I do. Yep.
All right. So this is the key to actual meditation itself. Those 6 facilitation exercises help usher in what I call the conscious or the dualistic state. All right. So do you actually have the chart? Oh no, that's all right. We'll start with that. Yeah. So when you look at it, the true state of meditation is that you go into a state of stillness, emptiness, silence, solitude, inwardness, openness, and nature, the nature of love, light, and life, right? So that again, there's an order in which that comes about, right? So when you look at it from the top, just because you're still doesn't mean you're empty. Just because you're still and empty doesn't mean you're silent. Just because you're still empty and silent doesn't mean you have a true sense of solitude. And just because you have a true sense of solitude doesn't mean you're inwardly focused to what I call the inward coming thoughts or the source of the breath and the heartbeat. And then just because you're doing that doesn't mean you're unconditionally open to giving, receiving, sharing, and reciprocating. And once you are unconditionally open to giving, receiving, sharing, and reciprocating, you can then experience the nature of love, light, and life, and the oneness, bliss, and immortality. So this chart that Mark's showing there, that's actually one from the workshop as well. And when you look at it, there's an internal and external stillness, internal and external emptiness. And what I've got there are the key points which help you attain and maintain the internal and external stillness, emptiness, and silence. So you can bring it into conscious awareness. Like if you've got a song stuck in your head, and you've got that earworm going around, exactly what you need to do to dissolve all that. Like I say, it's all about redirecting the energy, right? So that's why I'm saying, if you've got children on a brain exercise program, they've got ants in their pants, they've got all these involuntary movements, it's because all the energy is going down the compensatory pathways. And when you use those 6 facilitation exercises to activate your natural pathways and redirect all the energy into those natural pathways, anybody can attain the stillness, emptiness, and silence, solitude, inwardness, openness, and nature anywhere at any time. Yeah. So that's the whole idea of the ADARA meditation, be able to do it anywhere at any time, with anyone, irrespective of the circumstances, where you can maintain what are called the state of grace. Right. So that's the actual key to meditation. If those 6 facilitation exercises that you're doing either from the top down or bottom up are not consciously taking you into this state, that's called the conscious state, the stillness, emptiness, and silence, right? If you're not going closer to or deeper into what I call session, the stillness, emptiness, and silence, then it's not empowering you. Right. So when you look at it, how it all works together, the stillness, emptiness, and silence, that's when you go into the depth of it. Right. And as you go deep into the stillness, you then, if you see how those arrows go across to the left, the stillness becomes the pace of grace. The emptiness becomes the, I haven't got it up here. The emptiness becomes the overflowing outpouring. Right. So as you go down the chart, you start to connect with so the session part going down, if you just move the cursor downwards there, Mark, the going down, as you go down deeper into that, that's the experience. And then the other column on the left, if you look at it from the bottom up, it says link top. It's love, light, life, instrumental, what's that one there?
Nature, universal form,
Yeah.
kinship, community, truth outpouring, overflowing joyfulness, pace of grace, flow.
Yeah. So it goes in that circle, in that spiral. And as it goes in the spiral, it's actually going deeper. But in the first stage, when you start to connect with the experience of it, those arrows going to the left it starts to reflect in your expression. And when you fully drop into the nature, which is oneness, bliss, and immortality, that just fully activates your expression, and then it goes in that spiral, right? So that's the whole empowered experience. That's called the enlightenment process, right? So enlightenment, if you remember that enlightenment is nothing more than seeing everything for what it truly is and responding appropriately, right? So in the absence of that session link top, that's called session link top, you've got Hotsoon the liar, and every single one of the components of session has its counterpart, and that's the dualistic experience, and then that reflects in the dualistic expression, which is the liar. So you've got Hotsoon going down, the liar going up. So that's just a bit of an overview. If that's the detail that you can go into it. So most people are trapped in the hamster wheel on the spiral on the left. They're going backwards, right? It's like an anti-clockwise spin, and they're stuck in the hamster wheel or the merry-go-round. And to be able to break out of that, you need to have the exact combinations of facilitation exercises to help them not just slow down and stop, but to find stillness, right? A lot of people, like Sam Harris says, when they're meditating, they're just thinking with their eyes closed, right? So what we're doing with the ADARA meditation is using all the natural reflexes in the body to redirect the energy to stillness consciously, so you can attain and maintain stillness within and between breaths and heartbeats. So you can do it almost instantly, right? So it gets you off the hamster wheel immediately, right? And so once you know how to find stillness through the breath, then you can instantly go deeper into it, into the emptiness and then the silence, right? So that's just an overview of how we can go into it in great detail. And once you know this, it's something that you immediately identify in everything. It's like you can't unsee it once you see it. And you can see how a lot of the New Age philosophical bullshit is presenting these these components, but they're still within duality, right? So there's a false positive and a true positive of all this, and there's a true and false awareness of all this, right? So if somebody says, I'm going to go home and shut the door and turn the lights off and just relax, and they're talking a million miles an hour, you know they're not coming from stillness, right? So there's a dualistic part of this where people can apparently go into the session as a meditation, but they're only doing it as an escape, right? So this is what I talk about in detail in the ADARA meditation workshops, is to how to determine whether you're doing something to escape the pressures of society, or whether you're consciously going into meditation to honor the nature of consciousness, the nature of reality. And most people, when they're meditating, they're just doing it for to have a reprieve from all the pressures of the world, or just to give themselves time out. And unless you're actually doing it consciously, using the facilitation exercises directed towards stillness and emptiness and silence, it's actually not empowering you, right? All it's doing is calming your nervous system down for a while and giving you a change of mind and a change of physical state, but it's not helping you shift consciousness back to your true nature. And as you can see by the chart there, you can only get into your true nature once you're unconditionally open to receiving the information that comes with every breath and every heartbeat. That's when you get into the nature of spirit, which is love, light, and life. And through the essence, you connect with the actual nature of the divine itself, which is oneness, bliss, and immortality. So the more you go into the depth of it, the more you connect with the true nature of it. And then as you go deeper, the ADARA meditation helps you stay anchored in the state of that, the depth of that. So you, like a lot of people, the masters I spent time with, they said, if your state changes from when you've been meditating, you stand up and walk around, you haven't been meditating, right? The meditative state is something that you have to be able to maintain. So if you imagine now that session, the stillness, emptiness, and silence, that's a conscious state. That's something you can be aware of between every breath and every heartbeat, right? That's the true power of how we're meant to use the mind. And the yogis that I spent time with, they were very black and white. And they said, you have to be aware of this with every breath and every heartbeat. And when I share that with people, they think I'm exaggerating or, whatever. But if they say, how is that possible that you're aware of every breath and every heartbeat? And I say, it's very simple once you know how. So if you've ever had a song stuck in your head, that could be there for days or weeks or even months. Right. So what's happening is that energy in your mind is looping. Right. This is where people actually go looping. Right. So what I've been taught is how to redirect that energy into the cycles of the breath and then the cycles of the heartbeat. And when all that energy is connecting to the energy and the intentions of the source of the breath and the heartbeat, then you're conscious and empowered. Right. That's why they make all these mindless, repetitive songs, to deliberately trap your mental energy into something that's completely insignificant and waste your time and energies. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're consciously retrieving all those energies that are being scattered into directing the breath towards the stillness. We all start with all the breathing exercises, directing the breath into stillness, emptiness, and silence. Right. So the 12 factors of breathing, one of them is the phase of the breath. So we breathe in, hold it in, breathe out, hold it out. Right, so that's the basic square wave breath. So when you are seeking to find the stillness, you breathe out and you hold the breath out and you wait for the breath to come in. Yeah. So thanks, Mark. So that's essentially the diagrams for the breathing. So when you breathe in, you can affirm that in by pushing the navel out. Right, below the navel extends outwards. Right, so then you hold the breath and you relax. You hold the breath until the breath just goes out by itself through the nose, and then you affirm it by going and pulling the navel into the spine just effortlessly, and then you hold it relaxed and wait for the breath to come in. If you just hold the breath out and just stop breathing, eventually the body will breathe by itself. Right, if you hold it out without straining, eventually the breath will come in through the nose. As it comes in through the nose, you direct it below the navel. Right, everybody who's had babies would have noticed that the little tummies below the navel go up and down. Right, so you direct the breath below there. That may take some practice and training, And then you affirm it by pushing the navel out a little bit more. So the first bit's effortless, and then when that stops, you affirm it, right? And as you get better, you can just gradually affirm it as it tapers off. Then you hold the breath in, wait for the breath to go out, and then you affirm it when you breathe out by pulling the navel into the spine, right? So if you're not aware of those phases of the breath in every moment of every day, you're simply not empowered. That's what the ADARA meditation is all about, is to get you mindful of the information that's coming into your consciousness with every breath and every heartbeat, right? So as you go deeper and deeper into this state, the stillness and emptiness and silence that comes with holding the breath out, you can then tune into the 4 chambers of the heartbeat, and the communication between the lungs and the heartbeat. The cardiopulmonary system is actually the flow of intuition and inspiration on a metaphysical level. And you can see exactly where your thoughts are coming from, even between phases of the breath, right? So just to give you an idea, when you're holding the breath out, you will get told how sharply to breathe in and how deeply to breathe in. And then as you do that, you may get told to affirm it, right? So then the second chart there is where you hold the breath in, and then you might hold it in a little bit, and then breathe in some more, hold it, breathe in a bit more, and then hold it, right? So that's called stacking the breath. So every phase, every stage of every phase of the breath, you're actually getting told what to do next. And this is actually where it translates into mindfulness, right? So if you need to empty your mind of something, you breathe out deeper. Just scroll down again, please, Mark. So you breathe out deeper and go to absolute fully out, right? Or if you need to remember something, you breathe in and you hold it in and you repeat it to yourself, or you visualize or imagine expressing it, right? But either way, when you hold the breath in, that's when you're consolidating on information. That's when you're anchoring it into your consciousness or your mind. And when you breathe out deeply, that's when you're returning to the nature of everything, which is void, right? So the reason why this is all so important is because when you go back to source with meditation or plant medicines, you end up going back to a void where you're all knowing, all powerful, and all present. But when in that state, there's no experience. So from the void, there's the Om, which is the manifestation into matter, where everything's materialized. It's only in the manifested form can we experience our formless nature, right? So when we're meditating, the idea is to do it from the stillness, emptiness, and silence, which is reflecting the void, right? So the deeper we go into the stillness, emptiness, and silence, the more we go back to the void, and we can feel everything resonating in and through us in every breath and every heartbeat. So it's actually the divine essence expressing itself. It's all the divine elements at work in and through us, right? So this is where I go into great detail in relation to the breathing, of how all this works and how it changes your state of mind, your physical functionalities, and everything, right? So just scroll up again, please, Mark. So the whole idea of this is to direct this below the navel, right? So if you're breathing below the navel, right, neurologically, physiologically, bioelectrically, you're going beyond dualities, right? This is something that I contend with a lot of educated people who have done yoga and all that sort of stuff, done breath work, right? There's a metaphysical thing. I won't go into all the dimensions of it, but as soon as you breathe below the navel, you're going beyond duality, right? If you're breathing above the navel, you're still stuck in the dualistic paradigm, which is good, bad, right and wrong, positive, negative. And within that, on the nervous system level, you're dealing with the sympathetic and parasympathetic state, right? Whereas when you're breathing below the navel, you're going beyond the dualities of the nervous system, and you're actually using the nervous system from a supernatural state, right? So you're actually bypassing the dualities of the nervous system. So what's happening is when you breathe below the navel, it changes your blood chemistry. So you've got the 6 levels of communication within your body. If I stick a pin in your toe, your whole body jumps. So all the information coming from your toe, either directly or indirectly, connects with every other cell of your body. So the information travels through your lymph system very slowly, and then which is 3 times bigger than your vascular systems and your blood. which again is that's not as big as the nervous system, right? So the nervous system communicates information. They're the 3 physical levels of communication. Then you've got the bioelectrical level, which is the meridians. Then you've got the chakras and the quantum level. They're the non-physical, right? So if the blood and the lymph are disturbed by your diet and by your breathing patterns and your exercise and so on, then that aggravates your nervous system. And if it pushes it into a sympathetic state, then you're constantly in that parasympathetic and sympathetic battle, right? Whereas to bypass all the neurology of that, and I talk about the homunculus again, you can bypass all the stresses of the lymph, blood, and nerves by activating all the bioenergy. This is where all the Tai Chi and all the Tao's, Tao's Tai Chi and all the yogis and everything like that, they exercise the energy centers below the navel. So that's a bioelectrical, bioenergetic source of energy. And it's also on a quantum level. Because so as soon as your lymph, blood, and nerves are agitated, your bioelectrics, bioenergetic, and quantum levels shut down, right? So this actually switch off. And those of you that know my work, you need the lymph, you need the bioelectrics and the bioenergetics and quantum level to be working to be able to connect with the intuitive process that's happening beyond time and space, right? So, so what's happening is if you're breathing above the navel, you're stuck in time and space. But if you're breathing below the navel, you can actually go from space-time, right? It's a completely different paradigm. And so the 6 facilitation exercises help you determine where you're at within your genetic strengths and weaknesses to know what ones to use according to your state, right? So if you've had a late night, then you may need to focus on doing visualizations and breathing exercises. If you've been working hard at the gym, you might need to do some physical exercises and some mental exercises, right? So this is where there's no standard answer to anybody's state. Everybody's state is constantly in flux. And the more you understand the top down and bottom up approaches to these 6 facilitation exercises, the more you'll be able to attain and maintain the stillness, emptiness, and silence that comes with the breath awareness, right? So after a while, this becomes automatic, right? But the idea is to focus on the stillness, emptiness, and silence, and not contend with all the issues that are taking you out of the stillness, emptiness, and silence. Right, so this is where I bring all the martial arts and that sort of stuff, is you don't resist anything. You don't even resist the thoughts. Because one of the things I go into in detail is the 18 origins of thoughts within the material. And you don't resist the outward going thoughts. You just redirect the energy that's being projected in the outward going thoughts. You redirect all the energy, you retrieve it and redirect it back into the breath. And you use the 12 factors of the breathing to reset the energy centered on the cycle of the breath, right? The actual, the 12 factors of breathing. So you're consciously aware of all the 12 factors of breathing in every moment. And you're not having all the stray outward going thoughts, right? You're literally centered in yourself, you're present, and within that, you're minding your own business, right? So this is where those of you that know me, like I stopped having connection to the masters that I spent time with in India in May 2014. And to take up the slack, when I was in India, the masters told me that I'd be doing plant medicines, and it didn't mean anything to me at the time. But now that I'm actually aware of the plant medicines, they're actually helping me refine how to communicate all this information from the bottom up, right? The Nature of Life book that I wrote, it's at level 13. There's 18 levels. It's from level 13 and above. But I had no real way of being able to communicate all the information. It's like the capstone of the pyramid, the book, The Nature of Life. It's how to access all the higher knowledge. But I have to now be able to filter all that into the bottom up approach. And I've never wanted to or had the resources or the skills to be able to do that. And that's what the plant medicines have been helping me understand, is how to break all this information down into its simplicities and make it accessible to anybody hearing it the first time, right? So this is where when you use these techniques together with the universal method or the universal kinetics or the ADARA meditation, it all crosses over into the same thing, right? So this is where once you understand these 6 facilitation exercises, you can instantly tell whether the meditation techniques that a person's using and selling or practicing is appropriate for them or not, right? When I was in India last, I spoke to a guy who said he'd been practicing a form of meditation for 16 or 17 years, and he admitted that he didn't feel any different from the day he started. But this is what his guru taught him. Yeah. And so when I actually went through it with him, it was just a mental exercise. Yeah, that's all he was doing. He was just saying mantras. You know, he was a Brahmin, and all he was doing is doing all their prayers, and there was nothing else. He wasn't even really consciously aware of the breathing as he was saying his mantras, right? So this is where everything's appropriate when it's appropriate, and depending on the depth and the stage that you're at when you're going into the session, the stillness, emptiness, and silence, you may need to spend a period of time using a particular technique. But if you stick with any one technique for any period of time more than you have to, it's going to limit you, because it's who's the person doing the technique, right? It's stopping you from being able to get to the point where you're the instrument of the grace that's flowing through you, and all the inspiration and the knowledge that's going through you that has to be shared. But if you're stuck on a technique to help you connect or stay connected, then you're not actually contributing to the state that comes with the sharing of it, right? This whole thing with the ADARA meditation is to be able to step into the meditative state in an instant, literally within a heartbeat, and to stay there. And from that state, like in martial arts, we're taught to be still, empty, and silent, and in a life and death situation, just maintain that and then explode in response, and then return to the stillness, emptiness, and silence. But what's happening in society is that everyone's speeding up, right? And they don't know how to stop. And I know that because I asked them, how do you stop? How do you slow down? They just say, I just relax. But when you ask them, how do you relax? Nearly everybody tells me they relax and unwind by distracting themselves, right? The whole idea of the truth is to get into the self-forgetfulness state, right? But what they're doing is they're going into full-on distraction mode in a hypnotic state, where they just go into a zombie state, watching a movie or watching a football game or reading a book. That's a disassociation. That's not self-forgetfulness, right? And this is where eventually I'm going to, if this is appropriate, eventually I'm going to get all the key meditation people to explain what meditation is and how they're doing it, and give an example of their exercises and practices, and then compile it all together to show how they're actually using a combination of the 6 facilitation exercises, whether they're doing it from the top down or the bottom up, and what the outcome of that is, what their proposed outcome of it is. And this is where you can see some meditations are being towards returning to silence, or some are stillness. But if you have to do it in a particular order, because if you look at the physics of it, you can have stillness, right? But then if you don't have emptiness, like if you have a vacuum, it's still and empty, which means no sound can travel through it, which is the silence. So silence is the result of stillness and emptiness, right? So in that chart that Mark showed you, I explain how stillness is a point within and beyond time, and emptiness is a point within and beyond space. And internal and external silence is the result of internal and external stillness and emptiness, right? So this is where, when you practice these 6 facilitation exercises using the ADARA meditation techniques, you can pretty well instantly arrive at the stillness, emptiness, and silence, because you literally unplug from everything that's feeding into the dualities, and you go back into like the 0 point where everything just stops. And then within that is stillness, right? So when you're in that point of stillness within yourself, you can honor everything that actually continues to move. So when you're in the state of stillness, you can honor the forces of the breath and the heartbeat that continue on after you've removed yourself from the picture, more or less. Yeah. So that's the basis of ADARA meditation. So the idea of ADARA being the word in Sanskrit for honor is that you honor all the forces that are giving you life, and you honor all the processes of attaining and maintaining stillness, and you honor all the processes that are required for you to actually have a true, the ongoing experience and expression of that truth, right? So that's the whole chart, which you've got the session and link top and the hot soon and the liar, is to be able to instantly identify where you're at and where the people that you're associating with are at, right? So if somebody's talking a million miles an hour, full of knowledge and everything, there's no point telling them anything if they're full, right? So there's a saying in Hinduism: first be, then do, and then if necessary, when asked, tell, right? So this is where a lot of people who are teaching this sort of information, I ask them, are you at peace? And they say no. And so, well, you have to be at peace before you can teach any of this, right? So first be whole and complete, which gives you peace, and then do everything as a pure expression of that peace. And then if necessary, if they ask you to share that, right? So everybody on this call is genuinely seeking to know the truth, right? So what I'm saying is there's a lot of people who are genuinely wanting to be genuine, but they're scared of being authentic, right? And this came up there yesterday. I was talking to somebody, and I was really hard on them because I knew who they were and what they could take. And when it got down to it, they were scared of being authentic because it would mean perhaps alienating and isolating themselves from all their loved ones, because they were too scared to be true. And as a result of that, they weren't expressing who they really are. And they'd already been in a really difficult relationship and so on. And they weren't able to cope and deal with it, because that to really have the strength to cope and deal with it in a way that they needed to, they had to be authentic. So they were generally wanting to be genuine within their role because they were in the role of serving humanity, but they didn't feel worthy and deserving of being authentic to themselves, because that would mean somehow appearing to be superior or different to the people around them. And that's where a lot of people get stuck, right? Yeah, so I'll just check here. Is there anything else? So that's pretty well what I wanted to explain to everybody tonight. So when you go into the 6 facilitation exercises and the session link top, the conscious and dualistic state, what I do is that I can go into the what, when, how, where, why, and who of each one of those, right? So there's the what, when, how, where, why, and who of the breathing exercises, the what, when, how, where, why, and who of the relaxation exercises. So it opens up to infinite amount of information again. And when you can define where you're at within yourself, you'll be able to determine when to use which an imagining. You might use imaginings in the morning, and you might use visualizations at night. So it just takes away all the confusion and a lot of all the mental gymnastics, because if people don't consciously know how to just instantly go into the stillness, then all they've done is they're prolonging the state of confusion or delusion that's going on in their heads. All they're doing is disassociating it from it for a bit, having a bit of relaxation, changing what they think about for the time they're sitting there. They're not changing how they think. They're only changing what they're thinking, which is perhaps more positive or less stressful while they're meditating. Whereas if they knew how to meditate and went into the stillness, emptiness, and silence, the actual ego, the self, would drop away. They'd go into the state of self-forgetfulness. They would tap into the divine nature of the meridians, the chakra, the quantum level. The lymph, blood, and nerves would then become balanced, and that would switch off all the stress responses in their body, and they would actually feel themselves as an instrument of grace with the breath and the heartbeat again. So a lot of it is just a case of demystifying all the unnecessary bullshit that we've been taught is meditation, right? So what I want to do is get all the different techniques of meditation, have the best people in the field of that technique explain it. And if you want to know what I'm doing, is I've gone on to the internet and I've downloaded and watched every single TED talk on meditation or mindfulness or relaxation, or all the different videos on YouTube about what meditation is, how to be mindful and that sort of stuff. And it's so obvious when people are just limiting it all to 2 or 3 techniques based on 2 or 3 exercises. Whereas if the person does need a particular exercise, that technique's not going to work for them, especially if they're sitting there drinking coffee. Like the masters I spent time with, they said it's completely unacceptable that somebody would be sitting there with a glass of wine or coffee and a cigarette while reading Eckhart Tolle, right? That's just like something that's just beyond stupid, right? And once people are actually aware of what they can connect within themselves, they will see whether people like the Dalai Lama, Eckhart Tolle, all these people, whether they have an authentic connection to it, or whether they're just genuine within their expression of what realizations they've had. Right. So this is where I talk about the depth and the level of realization or awakening that people have got, and where they're communicating from. And the reason why I put the ADARA meditation together is because, having spoken to thousands of people all around the world, and I asked the people, the leaders of these fields, what do you do, exactly how do you do it, and so on. No one's been able to answer me, right? And this is the same reason why I put together the universal method and the universal kinetics, is because there's nothing really bringing everything together in a way that is whole, right? And again, without going too much into it, this is where the personality that humanity is adopting is one of narcissism, and narcissism instantly dismisses complexity for the sake of simplicity. So they just want to reduce everything down to something simple, rather than be able to honor the depths of it, because they no longer have the intelligence pathways to deal with the depth of it. So they just dismiss it and they cut it away, right? So narcissists cut people down like a tall poppy thing. They cut them apart by saying, you can do anything. And then the next thing they'll say, you can't do that. You don't have that, right? And then they cut people away from others, right? So they cut people away, they cut a person apart, and they cut a person down. And what happens when a person goes into meditation, like this person I was talking to yesterday, they weren't feeling worthy and deserving of having the experience, the ultimate experience that meditation would give them, right? So they're going into it not actually even expecting the ultimate. They were going into it just wanting a reprieve from their stressful day. All right. So this is what we're working towards. It's like what Bruce Lee has done with martial arts, with Jeet Kune Do, is he's brought everything that's appropriate into it, so it's appropriate when it's appropriate. Right. So eventually, I'm hoping that one day humanity wakes up and realizes that the ADARA meditation is the all-encompassing, all-embracing, all-inclusive model for meditation. So yes, you can go off and do Vipassana, you can go off and do transcendental meditation, you can do whatever form of meditation you like. But if you can do those techniques with the ADARA approach, with the ADARA meditation perspective and approach. So eventually, like, there really only needs to be one style of meditation, which is all-encompassing, all-embracing, which is what the ADARA is. This is my hope eventually, is that people have the humility and openness to wake up to how to bring it all together, and not only just advance their ability to meditate, but to go deeper and deeper into it and have a true experience of it in their daily life. And at the same time, have the willingness to share that experience with others, right? Most people, when they come across something that's new, because their conditioning and program is almost preventing them from embracing what's new. And this is where, I've had a hell of a time trying to talk sense to people with all the different modalities I've developed, because it's not mainstream. It's completely opposite to mainstream. It's deliberately made opposite to mainstream, because everything in mainstream and mainstream alternative is not working, right? And I know that that's not working, because I ask everybody, are you at peace? That sort of stuff, and everybody says no. So that in itself, through everybody's own admission, it means that even though they might have been doing kinesiology for 20 years and they themselves are not at peace as a practitioner, what the hell are they doing, right? So it needs to be an expression of the fullness of who we are. We're meant to be in a state of overflowing gratefulness and joyfulness. And if we're not in that state, well, then we're bearing false witness. Yeah. So the idea is to have these very simple techniques that clearly defined. So if you can instantly pick up on your breathing pattern and know which of the facilitation exercises you need to realign, what facilitation exercise you need to connect, and what facilitation exercise you need to merge with, right? And to take you deeper into the meditative state. And then ongoing, what you need to be able to do to maintain that responsiveness, right, from that state. And this is where I've got this, do you have that chart with the full-on depth of meditation on the 9 levels of being, Mark?
Which one's that? Is it in the handbook?
No. It's something I share in the advanced one, but I'm not sure whether I actually gave that to you personally.
I've got the 9 levels of being.
Yeah, you know that one where it all drops down, where you got stillness on that level and it becomes emptiness, and you know that one? Yeah, I may not have shared that with you yet, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So what I've done is I've mapped out the whole process of how to go into the meditation, right, all the way down into the supernatural state. So this is where, if you understand how these facilitation exercises work, when you do plant medicines, you can use them to navigate your way, right? Where I was navigating to last night, I was actually into the mechanics of the subatomic particles, and I actually got shown how every one of the subatomic particles, what generates the spin, right? As those of you that know me know that I'm into physics. And I actually worked out, or got shown, how every subatomic particle, how the spin of it's generated, right? And the orbits of them and all that sort of stuff. It's actually really quite spectacular. So that's what I haven't had a chance to consolidate on today. But when you are aware of how to use ADARA meditation, it can take you to that depth, right? So the first thing you do is go into the breath, then you go into the heartbeat, then you go into the cellular level, then you go into the molecular level, and then you go into the atomic level, and then the subatomic level, and you go back to source, right? You can just do that just as like a dominoes thing. You just go down to the levels of consciousness, and you're back at source. Yeah. So anyway, there's that Dylan asking about the, yeah. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. That was a quick intro into the main facets of what's presented in the ADARA meditation. It's mainly the 6 facilitation exercises, understanding it, and then understanding the conscious and dualistic state, and how the depth or the intensity of those states are playing themselves out in a person's reality, and what's required to change a person out of the dualistic state into the conscious state. And then once you're in a conscious state, how to continue to deepen that and stay connected to it as you go about living in the daily world. Yeah. So anyway, so I'll leave it open to questions or comments now. So how long did that take, Mark?
A bit over an hour. So an hour and 8 minutes.
Okay, well, that only felt like half an hour to me. So anyway. All right, well, I'll shut up and let everybody ask some questions now, yeah? So
that was Sam and Dylan that have written in there. So one of the two, the dynamic duo over there. Would it be helpful to discuss posture and facial expression for everyone to work on as well, Brian?
Yeah.
Maybe helpful for those that haven't attended an ADARA medication. Well, it can be medication, surely.
It is. So the main thing is with the main technique that I share with the meditation is, if you don't have a smile on your face, you're actually not meditating, right? And there's all the neurological reflexes when the corners of your mouth are going up to the corners of your eyes, right? That bypasses all the neurological stresses in your body, right? So this is where a lot of people talk about spiritual bypassing and all that sort of crap. Well, here we are actually using it as a neurological reflex to literally bypass all the duality. So if a person's spiritual bypassing, it means that they're trying to override the dualities of the body. What we're doing is we're transcending the dualities of the body, knowing that they are not relevant to the nature of things, right? So as soon as you put a smile on your face, there's the saying in South India, if you're walking along and you trip over and fall and your friends and relatives don't laugh, it means that your friends and relatives they're not your true friends and relatives, because they're taking everything so personally and seriously. Right? So the idea is to just be always be lighthearted, to keep the smile on your face. As soon as the smile goes off your face, your energies slip into duality. Right? Then you're contending with things, you're resisting things, and you're thinking about things. Right? What I got shown last night is from the inside how thoughts or energies are projecting, and when they hit the screen of hit the substrate of consciousness, how it manifests. Whereas when you're able to keep yourself in a state of stillness, emptiness, and silence, you're at the 0 point, going down the wormhole of time and space, and you're just responding to things as they come. And as that's responding, that's changing the frequency and the resonance of your own body, so you're able to radiate. Right? But if you're not receiving the fullness of what's coming, you're off that frequency and you're projecting out into duality. And that's what's creating the dualistic paradigm. Whereas when you retrieve all that energy and redirect it back to honoring what's being given to you in the moment, then that's grace. And so when the nature of it all is oneness, bliss, and immortality. So to consciously bring the bliss in, you put a smile on your face. And when you look at how all the brain pathways and everything like that's involved, it just changes everything. It just literally puts you online with the divine, right? When you put a smile on your face. So the idea is to sit up unsupported as if you can. If you sit with your back unsupported, and you imagine the top of your head connecting to the center of the universe or source, and you got to imagine that if you've got a tail, that you sit with your tail sticking out. So when you pianists sit there with their little tuxedo on, and they push the flaps of their tuxedo back. It's like you've got to stick your tail out. Like imagine if your tailbone's got a tail, you've got to stick that out. This is all the Esther Gokhal's technique that actually switches on all the empowerment reflexes up your spine together with this. And then when you put a smile on your face, when you're in that state and relaxed into it through the breath, all's good in your world. Right, so when you breathe below the navel, you're transcending duality. The higher up you breathe, the worse things get. If you're breathing in your throat like this, you're panicking. If you breathe up in your chest, you're angry. If you breathe in the lower rib cage, you're grieving. Right? If you breathe below the navel, all's good in your world. So what you do is you sit up, put a smile on your face, and then with that, this sounds pretty harsh, but you actually die. You just stop being, you stop, right? And then you just smile on the face and you honor everything that's been given to you, every breath, every heartbeat. And because the other thing is you turn your eyes up and in, right? With a smile on your face, you keep your chin slightly up, back unsupported, straight and unsupported. And that's like, in that state, you're activating the pathways where you're able to literally channel all the higher levels of your consciousness. Right? So it's very simple and very easy. Right? So when you look at the internet and it's full of people meditating, very few of them have got a smile on their face. They're sitting there like this, right? Or they've got the chin down, right? That might be okay very temporarily, right? But to actually activate all the bioelectric, bioenergetic, and quantum pathways within the body, and to bypass all the lymph, blood, and nerve interference, you have to use a combination of those physical techniques, right? And what that does is it literally, it's a bit like when everything's locked in place, it naturally, it's like, I can demonstrate this in person. When you actually have the right posture, all the energies flow naturally, yeah? So, when you see somebody who's slouching like this, all the pathways within the body, they literally go into a dualistic state, right? So when I demonstrate this in my events, you get a person who's standing up nice and tall, feet parallel. You can hardly push them over forwards, backwards, or sideways, right? Whereas as soon as you get them to turn one foot out slightly, it's very easy to push them over with one finger, right? So all the energies of the body have natural pathways that when they're flowing, they work together with the rest of the body and they're empowered, right? Whereas any little deviation or discrepancy internally or externally with these pathways, it's like they can have dire consequences. That's why when you put together the right combination of techniques just in your posture with a smile, you're bypassing all the cellular memories and all the programmed associations going on in your body that's taking you away from stillness, emptiness, and silence, right? So once you actually know how to attain and maintain the conscious state, then it makes everything else you do effortless, right? Everything you do as a practitioner or as a mother or a husband or whatever, it's effortless because you're actually not carrying any residue of the past, because you're dying between breaths and heartbeats, and you're honoring the fullness of what's been given to you with the breath and the heartbeat. So there's no identity of who you were 5 seconds ago interfering with the grace that's coming into you in the now, right? So this is why the ADARA meditation is to get you to honor the fact that you are nothing and nobody. You never have been and never will be important, but within you is the absolute truth of everything, that you are here to serve as an instrument to all other beings, right? So you're here to be a part of the puzzle the same as everyone else. Everyone else is equally important, right? So when you have the full humility and you embrace that and you die between breaths and heartbeats, and with every breath you honor it as another opportunity to share and to be here and share, then you will be living, you'll be living the fullness of life. You'll be living life in the moment and not putting it off to some other time down the future. Like a lot of people, because they're not at peace, a lot of people aren't even expecting to ever be at peace. And if I say, well, when are you expecting to be at peace? Are you going to be able to do it in this lifetime? And they say, well, I hope so, right? So they're not actually doing it consciously and deliberately knowing that it's their natural state. If we ask somebody, why do you want what they want, right? And if they don't say because it's my nature, then they haven't honored the truth, which means they still have to try to navigate their way through things or negotiate with other people to get what's rightfully theirs, right? When you claim it as your natural birthright, your natural state, everyone else can go to hell, right? There's nothing and no one needs to influence you or interfere with your being, right? If you're whole and complete, everybody just leaves you alone. That if you're not feeling whole and complete, you've got to suck up to people, and you've got to, negotiate with people, and you've got to bargain your way through, and that's putting energy out, right? That's projecting energy, just how to win friends and influence people. Whereas when you're in a state of grace, right, you're at the frequency where everything and everyone just comes to you, right? Because everything by nature orientates itself towards truth. Yeah. As soon as somebody identifies the truth, they automatically go towards it, right? So the idea of what I'm sharing with all my work is to actually make that truth self-evident, indisputable, and undeniable, right? But because we're so conditioned and programmed, and we're so deep in the human condition, that people are starting to rebel against the truth. There's that saying, you don't have to be the master of a piano to know when someone hits the wrong key. Right now, people, when they hear the wrong key, they will still argue that that's somehow relevant. That's the state. I've actually had that happen, right? Where people are clearly doing something that's not right, but they will still argue their point that it's somehow relevant or appropriate to them, right? So that's the depth of the ignorance and arrogance, the human condition that we're dealing with, yeah? So, and then what I was going to say is the depth of that ignorance and arrogance is sometimes the worst in the field of health, fitness, well-being, and healing. Right, so that's why it's almost impossible for me to share a lot of this information with fellow practitioners, because they think that their techniques or their modalities are, the best. Like what Skinner said, if you've only got a hammer, everything becomes a nail. Right? We have to use everything that's appropriate when it's appropriate. Yeah. Anyway, so so does that answer the question about posture and smile and that? That's sort of a bit of an overview.
I think it does. I think one thing there to emphasize, though, is the effortlessness as well. So a lot of the time when people, get these preconceived perceptions of what meditation is, they envisage a flexible yogi sitting in perfect lotus and so forth. And those that haven't worked up to the structural integrity, be able to hold that. I think it's important to note that.
Look, if you want to look at a field that's full of misconceptions and theories and philosophies which are completely off track, study meditation and mindfulness. It's full of ridiculous theories and philosophy. Tragically so, because this is what's needed for people in times like these, because everybody's seeking some sort of solace or refuge for all the energies going on in their mind. So this is where the whole ADARA meditation practice is based on the nature of life material. And the essence of the nature of life material is how to put back what's missing, like I said last time. So if you're not consciously aware of how to put back what's missing to restore the wholeness and completeness, then you're not going to be able to align and connect with the ultimate and the inevitable. So this is why I say, is it inevitable that you fulfill your true potential and purpose within this lifetime, yes or no? If it's a no, then you're completely off frequency. You're not on your path at all, right? Which is what the nature of life's all about, is to help you find your true path. So you do feel the ultimate being inevitable. And if you haven't unconditionally surrendered to the divine or awakened to the divine nature, then you're not feeling the effortlessness of it, right? So the ADARA meditation is to help you just basically pull your head in, get you to sit down, shut up and be quiet, and literally just drop everything that you believe you know and understand, be an instrument of that peace in the here and now, and then live your life as a pure expression of it, right? It's not a process of becoming, right? It's an opportunity for you to be whole and complete now. You always have been, always will be whole and complete within yourself as a soul. It's just all the indoctrination, all the programming, conditioning that's actually somehow taken your mind away from the present, where you're still stuck in the past, remembering, accidents, injuries, or whatever, and your traumas, and looking at everything that's stopping you from being able to do that in the future. Well, all that's past and future. What about now? Yeah? So how do you bring all that energy back into the present, align it with the truth, and actually put it all into its pure expression and stay there, right? So this is where the master said, if it's inevitable and you're fully awakened to the nature of it, the journey between now and the ultimate must be effortless, right? So the ADARA meditation is to help you honor the laws, dynamics, and processes that are truly at work, and you can maintain the effortlessness as every moment unfolds in your life. Yeah. So does that cover that, Mark?
Yes, absolutely. Just for those that may be new to a call, and Brian keeps on referring obviously to his book, this is a copy of The Nature of Life. So it's a 600-page textbook. As you can see, it's bigger than a ream of paper. I'll pop a link in the description for anyone that would like to perhaps have a read, and it's also available digitally. But yes, you definitely answered my question. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah. So first there was Sam's just making some comments about potential of guided meditations, like we did in the the type of thing that whether you want to make comment on that or whether that takes away the spontaneity. But
yeah, I was thinking about doing some maybe a guided meditation, but it's probably a bit late for that now.
Okay.
I realised time got away, but
he's also made a little private comment to me about that he and some others would be happy to contribute a little donation for some during this time of lockdown for people to be involved and perhaps do some guided ones if it's worth your time.
Oh yeah. So like once you actually understand how these facilitation exercises work in relation to the conscious and dualistic state, you can literally pinpoint exactly what every meditation, visualization, guided meditation technique is actually doing, right? I can click on anyone on the internet and say, okay, that's a guided meditation helping you to use imaginings to find internal stillness or something, right? So, so I think there's only really two guided meditations that I do. And one of them is called the Supreme Divine Meditation, and the other one's the Shaktiput meditation. The Shaktiput meditation is the one I did the blog on. I will be at some stage soon doing a video on the Supreme Divine Meditation. That's the key one that I share in the ADARA meditation. That's the state that everybody needs to be able to attain and maintain at all times. And from that state, they can do the Shaktipat meditation it's effortless, yeah. And in that state, you can also do things like the universal Ho'oponopono and the universal method and the universal kinetics while staying in that state of consciousness. That's the whole idea of the ADARA meditation, is because it gives you the reference points within yourself in order to stay present and be an instrument of service to all in every moment of every day. That's the whole basis of it. And you either consciously know how to do that and maintain that state, or you don't. So yeah, so I will be doing some guided meditations, but maybe not tonight. So
I don't think they were asking for tonight. I think it was just whether it was exactly like you just said, released via audio or video, or down the track, whether we get together and do some over this format. Either Esther or William also had a question here. What is the exact role of the pineal gland in this? Can you exercise that separately?
Okay. Every organ in the body has a positive, negative, and divine state. Yeah. Those of you that sort of have any understanding or belief around the chakras of the body, the pineal gland is relating to the third eye, and it's to do with visualizations, yeah, primarily. And I don't put a lot of emphasis on it because I have what I call the conditions of unconditional sharing, which means that if somebody's not consciously aware of the chakras, like when I'm doing an event, I ask how many people have actually experienced the chakras, and there's very, very few people have ever experienced the chakras. So I don't like to talk about things that people aren't directly aware of or able to experience, because that just feeds into belief systems, right? So there's a lot of belief systems around the pineal gland, but just to give you an idea where I'm coming from, every single cell in the body is equally important, right? So every organ in the body is made up of individual cells, and every individual cell is more or less an entity of its own. So the body is made up of trillions of cells which are in agreement to hold form and coordinate themselves for a certain task or outcome. Yeah. So in that sense, the cells of the body themselves are instruments, right? They're the instruments of the consciousness, in the intelligence, getting them to manifest and hold form. So when you look at the pineal gland from the top-down perspective, it's no more important than any other cell in the body. But because we're in a dualistic state and we're like looking up to the divinity, when we're in a heart chakra space or a throat chakra space, we see the pineal gland and we go, oh, wow, that's so incredible, right? Whereas when you look at it from the top-down perspective, it goes without saying. It's the part where we can actually visualize and see the true relationship that we have with everything and everyone. And again, this is why, all the chemicals and poisons and fluoridation and things like that are impacting on that. And the worst thing of all is alcohol. That's where a lot of people come undone, is alcohol attracts negative entities which attach themselves to the chakras, and that's what blows people out. That's where when people have got alcohol, I'm forever in their system. I'm forever having to clear negative entities out of them. So the pineal gland, when it's clear and the people know how to use the divine nature of it, it can be used for all the visualization components within the ADARA. Yeah, so that's all I'll need to say about that.
Awesome. So we've got Catherine. Looks like Catherine's relatively new to your work by the looks of this comment. So Brian, what a privilege to be part of this session. I'm at the very beginning of my awakening. Can you recommend the first step? Is it to read The Nature of Life, or do you provide online resources I can subscribe to? Your work resonates with every cell in my being. Thank you. I can jump in there. I'll share Brian's website and how to contact, and also how to purchase the book. But Brian can address that comment if you feel like.
Yeah. So Catherine, was it?
It is.
Yeah. Hi, Catherine. The book I wrote, it's essentially a summary of everything I did in about over a 35-year period. And if I say this in all humility, if you read that book more than once or twice, it will put you 30 years ahead of yourself, right? Because everything that went into that book, it's a condensed journey of my life, where I, like, a lot of that book to me, well, nearly the whole book to me goes without saying. So I had struggled with it the whole time, having to put into words which should be self-evident and go without saying. So, but then this is where the more I got told to write it relative to where humanity's at, not relative to where I'm at. And this is where a lot of people don't really understand that first book, like I said, it's the middle book of 23 books now, right? So I want to be able to share with everybody above and beyond the 23rd book, right? And now I'm actually having to write all the simplified versions of it. So, you know, again, in all humility, I don't really recommend any other books, because none of those other books tell you exactly how to do anything, right? They give you lots of theories and philosophies about what to do, when to do it, how to do it, why to do it, but no how. And this is where everybody who's read my book will say emphatically, I've read all these other books, I've done all these courses, but they don't actually tell me how to do it. Right? The Nature of Life tells you how to do it. And this is where I did a blog on it there recently about the practical applications of it, because we have to actually make out everything very simple and basically spoon feed everybody for where they're at now. We have to give them it in the most simplest terms possible. And I'm still working on being able to do that, because it's like everything I'm doing is above and beyond the nature of life. So I'm actually having to work out how to explain this, right? So, and this is those of you that don't know me, I can't actually remember what it's like to not know what I know now. And I say that in all humility, because it's no different than if I said to you, you know how to read, write, and count, and you do it all day, every day, and you can teach people how to do that. But do you remember what it was like before you knew how to read, write, and count? Chances are you don't, right? I don't remember what it was like to not know what I know now. So I have a disadvantage of being able to put myself in a position of somebody who's never even thought about this. So not only have I been thinking about it, I've been living this consciously for the last 30 odd years, right? So to put myself in a position when I ask somebody a question and they say, I've never stopped to think about that, it's sort of like, oh my God, where do I begin, right? So that's where, up until just 2.5 years ago, I would refer people to, like, who were not at that point, to someone else. And I wouldn't bother trying to explain it to them, because I hadn't developed the skills to be able to communicate to that level. Whereas that's what I've done in the last 2.5 years, and I've gotten quite good at explaining all the bottom up side of things. So even so, that if a person has the intelligence and the earnestness to read my book, if they get through that once or twice, it will put them 30 years ahead of where they could be. And this is where, if I do an event, a weekend event, and I ask everybody, hands up those who would have come to this conclusion or come to this understanding through their own means. And most people say, not in a million years. That's through their own admission, right? Because so within what intelligence as a person has been born with and acquired in their lifetime, it's not actually steering them in the direction I'm going, or towards the true nature of things. So they literally haven't stopped to think about things. I ask people very simple questions. They go, I've never stopped to think about it that way before, right? That's not their fault. Everyone's a victim of being born in a zoo here. We're all living in captivity away from our natural state. This is what the ADARA Meditation and the book's all about, is to help you reawaken to your natural state and what the potential to be able to live and share that is in the here and now, in every moment, and not just keep putting it off until when you win lotto or something, or when you end up with the person of your dreams in your life. Yeah. So I recommend everybody read my book, right, at least 7 times. And the only other book that I recommend people to read is the book, if they're up to it, the book's called I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj. And you can get that as a PDF online as well. But that book is coming from what's called a Jnani, a saint in India, and he was clearly speaking from the other side of consciousness. I don't speak like that because everybody would think I'm a complete nutter if they don't already think I am. So it's like what Sadhguru says. Every person who's a teacher has to be contemporary. I have to talk to the people that I'm talking to in the way that's necessary. Otherwise, I'd be just sitting in silence. I just wouldn't say anything like Ramana Maharshi. I've got nothing to say about anything. I just have to say what's asked of me. Yeah. So within that state, that's all the ADARA state as well. So the book is all intended on taking you to the point where you are in that natural state at all times. Yeah. So really, this is where the people who have read my book say it makes reading every other book really difficult because you can see all the holes in it where they're not actually covering what's necessary. But I want people to find that out for themselves. I don't want to go around saying everyone's missing the point. I want people to read my material and go, oh, I did that for 20 years and I realized that's all missing the point. Yeah? So it's all that I can only say that up to a certain point before people have to realize it for themselves. Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
I think Catherine's actually unmuted there. Did you want to share or contribute any extra to what Brian's just shared, Catherine, or was that answer?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
I can now, but that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just absolutely blown away, Brian.
Are you?
Yeah.
Why? Can I ask why?
I'm not sure I can articulate it.
Welcome to my world.
It's what happens when you hear the truth. And I think what really resonates with me is the fact that this is a state of being.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, this is every minute of your life. This is not meditating for an hour a day.
That's right. It's a conscious way of being.
And I'm blown away. I mean, it's really complex.
Yeah, but it's very simple. When you actually get the simplicity is of if it's not nourishing you in the now, it's not true. If it's a residue of the past and you're thinking about the dualities of whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, positive, negative, it's not true. The only thing that's true is the beauty, goodness, and freedom saturating your being in the now, filling you with the love, light, and life that you're here to be and do. It's that simple.
There's almost a paradox in the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
But there is a complexity in it as well.
Well, the complexity is the depth of it. How deep can you go into the nature of that? Yeah. So it's like if you look at a law book, it's complicated and it's infinite in its complications. It's an abyss, right? But this is like the opposite. It's a complex matrix that you can just keep going and exploring the beauty of it. Yeah. So the ADARA meditation, it's pure and simple, natural, whole, here and now, and it gives you the ability to align and connect with the doorway. And once you go through that doorway within your consciousness, you're liberated to be all that you are and do all that you're here to do. It takes away all exceptions, all exclusions, and all excuses. If you're not being true to yourself here and now, sit down, shut up, and be quiet until you are. Yeah. And this is what I actually share in the workshop as well. You know, all the stories of the masters who put me on this path, and the purity and the simplicity of how and why that has to be the case. It's not some long drawn out thing where you've got to sit there for 6 months and keep practicing something. It's like, no, I've actually just told everybody how to go into the absolute depths of meditation in the last hour. Right? Most people on this call know more about meditation than somebody who's been doing it for 30 years, you know, with some other technique. Right? They're consciously aware of all the factors that determine not just the efficiency of it, but the depths of it. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's as I said, it's been quite an awakening.
Yeah, good.
And I look forward to reading the book.
Yeah,
probably a few times.
Yeah. Look, until somebody's read it 7 times, to be honest, I don't think they could comprehend where I'm really coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote it as simply as I could, but I did write it at level 13, knowing what I know now. Like I said, I would never have written that book. But for where it's there for people like yourself who are genuinely seeking the truth and have the capacity to embody it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Thanks, everyone.
Have we met at all, Catherine?
Yes, we're related.
Are we?
Yes.
Oh,
we are cousins.
Catherine Dovey. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Jackie and David's daughter.
Jackie and David. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, right.
So we're second cousins.
Yeah, I haven't seen you for a long time.
Yeah.
You're David and Jacqueline's daughter.
Yes.
They were first cousins then.
But well, we're actually first cousins. Sorry, Brian. My brain is definitely gone somewhere else.
That's all right. Yeah, I haven't seen you since 2006, I think.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So I'm just so grateful that I had the opportunity to hear you tonight. So I won't take up any more.
That's all right. Do you know if your mum's on the call?
Well, she was meant to be. I can't see her, but okay. We'll listen to the recording anyway.
Yeah, okay. Oh, it's good to catch up with you again anyway. I had a cousin on my other side. Actually, you probably you know them as well, but I won't go into it. But yeah, they contacted me recently as well.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I won't take up any more of the airtime.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks.
Thank you, Catherine.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
You're welcome. Okay, any other questions?
None there at the moment. Just I did see, is it Kai and Dan before I unmuted? Was that accidentally, or did you guys have something to contribute or share?
Yeah, sorry, bro. That was accident. Cheers.
That's okay. No worries.
Hey, Dan.
How you going, bro?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Another day in paradise. Another awesome talk. It's fired me up to read a bit more of that book.
Good. Next time I'll be asking questions.
Cheers.
Okay.
Right,
Sam's just here we go. So Marco had a question. Hi, Brian and everyone. Since you mentioned alcohol, is kombucha still okay to drink? It sometimes has low amounts of alcohol. Address that first, then there's a second question.
All right. First part of the question is kombucha okay? Every food, every drink is medicine. Everything's appropriate when it's appropriate. This is where I explain in the book that there's 18 laws of health, 18 laws of fitness, 18 laws of well-being, and 18 laws of healing. One of the laws of healing is everything's appropriate when it's appropriate. Kombucha's fine if you are completely depleted in microbiome and energy levels. Like the sugars in kombucha are actually quite restorative in the short term, right? But this is where if you've got any problems with alcoholism in the family, or if you've had an alcoholic period in your past before, it's not ideal. Like I said, alcohol is really bad for entities. And the one of the sayings in healing is it only takes a small pin to pop a big balloon, right? So if you've got any tendencies, any weaknesses in certain areas, that little bit of alcohol could be enough to just tip you over the edge, right? And this is why when you're aware of the ADARA meditation state, it keeps you connected to the intuitive process automatically, right? So I have a saying, if in doubt, stay out, right? So if you're about to have a kombucha and you have an intuition, maybe I shouldn't drink this, don't. All right, don't override your intuitions. If you're sitting there and having your second kombucha and you haven't even thought of it, that's fine. But if you go to open the first one, should I be having this? That's no. Right. So if in doubt, stay out. Right. That's with every food, everything you put in your mouth, every phone call. If you have a feeling, don't call someone, don't call them. Right. Don't ever override your intuition. Always stay that state of grace where you're doing everything beyond doubt, judgment, question, guilt, shame, and blame. Right. So, so kombucha's fine. Everything's fine as medicine. Right. There's one point there where I was working extremely long days, and I'd literally see the last client, and the first thing I'd have is a sip of kombucha, and that would just like reset my energies. And then I'd, you know, like at the end of every day, I'll have a massive amount of work to catch up on, and I'll get through it, right? But that took its toll on my guts, right? For a period of time, I had too much kombucha just to sustain me. Then I had to go and fix my guts up as a result of it, right? There's bacteria in it, which some of them aren't good for some people's guts, yeah? And somebody in the whole field has worked out there's a correlation between the bacteria and cervical cancer as well. So just be aware of that, yeah? So,
yeah,
that
makes sense.
All right, so what was the other part of the question?
Sounds like Marco's actually online now. So,
Hi, g'day, Marco.
Yeah, hi. Nice
Hey.
to connect with everyone. So my second question was just basically, because I found myself yawning. So I was wondering what facilitation exercise is good to do for yawning before doing meditation.
Yawning is primarily lymph and blood. So you're not breathing the full range. You're not going from 0 to 100. Yeah. So you've got to actually do the breathing exercises to pump your lymphatics. Something that's critically important everybody needs to understand is the heart pumps the blood, but very few people know what pumps the diaphragm. So it pumps the lymphatics other than muscular contraction, right? When you're sleeping, the diaphragm is what pumps the lymphatics, right? It can't afford to go stagnant. So the diaphragm is what pumps the lymph. The blood is what pumps the heart. And then you've got all the energies that are associated with the craniosacral therapy, you know, the flow of pumping the cerebrospinal fluid, that helps nourish the brain as well, right? So the main thing with breathing is that you've got yawning, is that you're not breathing properly, and you'll bypass those energies if you put a smile on your face. And all of that could be due to structural problems. If you've got problems with if you need a chiropractic adjustment or something, it could be a subluxation or something like that in your spine, causing your respiration to be affected.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So the other
I do actually need some. Yeah.
There's another component to that, is that overeating will do it, and having a bad routine. Like if you're not going to bed at sleep at the same time, it could be just something simple like dehydration as well. So that when you know the book Marco, the ideal daily routine, it's the times when you eat and drink and sleep and all the rest of it. Yeah. So it's usually to do with the breathing, but it's associated with routine.
Yes. Yeah, makes sense. Because I do also with the chiropractor, but we don't have one here. But I used to go before when I was traveling, and I have.
So are you still in Finland
places
now?
Yeah, northern Finland. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, in that case, you need to do lots of stretching. If you can get one of those rollers that you roll back over and everything, if you
needs access to your camera.
Increase the flexibility of your spine, that'll help all that. All right.
Okay.
But it's primarily that you need to sit taller, chin up, keep your chin up, and eyes closed, looking up and in with a smile on your face. It'll help you bypass all that.
Right.
Yes, thank you. It's been really amazing. I'm on the second go now on both books, the Nisargadatta and yours. It's
good.
Yeah, really amazing stuff.
What did you say? You're the second time through on mine?
No, I'm on my second, so I'm maybe 100 pages in on the second go. Yeah.
Good.
And I found myself reading really slow. So when you talked the other time on the video on learning quickly, reading quicker, that's maybe something that I need to look into.
Yeah,
but what I found when I've been reading slowly, I've been anyways kind of taking it very in and integrating it. I haven't been thinking about anything else.
Yeah.
Also, some other people joined. Hello.
Okay. Alrighty.
Jack Jones here, Brian.
Yeah, hey, how you going, Jack?
Right.
Everybody, this is my godmother, Jacqueline Jones.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'll unmute. Thank you, Brian. Amazing.
All the best, Marco.
Oh, I've been doing meditation for years.
Right.
Way of life for me, but Catherine's become very interested in it recently, and also for herself and for her daughter, Brigitte.
Okay.
who has, well, as a family, we all have anxiety issues from time to time, and it's a great help with that.
Right.
But this has been very interesting. We were a little late getting in,
Okay.
and, but we've been able to pick up the thread and enjoy it very much.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So
It's good to connect with you again.
Yeah. Lots of love, Brian.
Yes. Okay. I'll catch up with you soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll send you an email.
All righty.
Or we'll chat on the phone.
Okay.
I talk with your dad a lot.
I do, yeah? Yeah, he's going well.
Conversations.
Yeah. All righty. Well, we'll
Great to
catch up
talk.
soon.
All
Okay,
the best.
bye-bye.
God bless. Bye, Brian.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
So, Mark, is there any other questions? Are you able to just turn your video off there, Jack?
I can do that. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All good.
All right.
So Esther and William were the next ones again. So do we meditate in space-time instead of the dualistic state? Question mark. Can we sustain that state? Question mark.
The answer is yes. Yeah. So those of you that have done the meditation, like I explained, it's like a figure eight, like a loop. So if you look at it as a infinity loop, this is space-time and this is time-space. So everything you're experiencing in space-time, like that's the heavenly state. So the idea is to, when you meditate, go into your supernatural body and have it come down into your earthly human form. Yeah. So how are we going? It's nearly 2 hours.
Yeah, 10 minutes, under 2 hours. Yep.
Yeah. I don't think I'll do any meditations. Maybe on another call, I'll actually go through the Supreme Divine Meditation. Yeah.
Sure.
And help people realize it. But the idea is to meditate, access your spiritual body, your heavenly divine state, and superimpose it over your earthly human body. And that's why when you're doing the ADARA meditation, from that perspective, those 6 facilitation exercises, you're already using your imagination, your visualizations to bring that state into your body. And then you do the 6 facilitation exercises to use that to heal the body or to deepen your journey inwards to the state of consciousness. Right. So, you can be a master yogi and use a breathing exercise and a visualization to heal, an issue with your body. Right. But the idea is to just keep transcending it and using the Supreme Divine Meditation and just keep going deeper into that state of stillness, emptiness, and silence, right? And then that finds that sort of it's like a didgeridoo has to be completely empty before it's usable, right? So when you go into the depth of that, then the more you're able to connect it with the divine energies, which then can express themselves through you. Like the masters I spent time with, they were supernatural to the point where they could do any miracle right in front of your eyes. And a lot of people would go, oh, wow, that's amazing. And they'd go, why should it be? It's just a pure expression of love, right? But we're limited in our thinking, right? So, it's like, imagine if Jesus did a miracle and everybody, oh, wow, that was cool, mate. And he'd just say, well, it's just pure love. What do you expect? So this is why there's nothing mysterious. There's nothing extraordinary about it. Our natural state is to be supernatural. So the more we actually honor that as our true state of being, bring that into our conscious state in every moment of every day, bring the Christ within out, bring the Buddha consciousness into your being so you can actually embody it. There's no exceptions, no exclusions, and no excuses for not doing that. Yeah. So this is what the ADARA is offering, is what everybody else is, it's like this is what other techniques are offering, but it's not delivering, right? We actually start at the point where most other techniques finish, right? So when we actually bring it into the now, then there's an ongoing development and integration. Most people are like a hamster wheel and they never quite get to that state of peace. They never get to stillness. They never get to emptiness. Yeah. So, okay. So were there any other questions?
They've just commented, thank you. Yes. And just before that, Catherine had a further question about can we use these techniques with children? Anxiety in children is a big challenge these days.
Okay. The yogis and masters I spent time with, they used to laugh hysterically at the human condition, right? So the whole lot is all about not taking things personally and seriously. Like, I have to ask you a question, right? Is it true that there's anything to be anxious about? Yes or no? If we're all instruments of God, we're all children of the divine, we're all here living heaven on earth, just exactly what is it? Where is there something to be nervous and anxious about? Right? It's all just part of the conditioning and programming, you know? Like I say to little children, you know, what's happening? And they go, I'm scared of that. And I say, look, can I tell you a secret? You know, I've lived and worked all around the world, and I've never seen anything or anyone to be scared of. Everything's just a trick. It's actually making you believe that there's something that can be scary. But when you're intuitive and you're strong and you're creative, there's nothing you can't handle. Yeah, and it's true, right? So this is all the supernatural part of us that's actually our natural state. And like, people are trying to be extraordinary, whereas they're not embracing natural, which means they're not going towards the supernatural. Right? It's black and white. So first of all, the best things to deal with the anxiety is to do the Byron Katie approach and just ask those 5 questions, including Byron Katie's works on all free on the internet. Ask the question, is it true? Get to the root of it. Is it true? And if that's not true, what is true? And this is where the ADARA meditation, it honors the truth, strips back everything that's false. If it's not here and now, if it's not unconditionally available to everybody, if it's not pure, if it's not absolute, if it's not instant, then it's not true. Right? That's what the ADARA meditation is the divine is within us all here and now. Nothing and no one can get in the way of it. Nothing and no one can actually influence it or limit it or restrict it or anything at all. It's just here now, right? So it's just a belief that if something that you've learned in the past is true, and nothing you know is true. This is why I say, are you at peace, yes or no? And most people say no. I say, well, why is that a good thing? And they say, well, how could it be a good thing? I say, well, it just proves that what you've done your whole life isn't true, because if it was true, you would be at peace and you'd know how to stay at peace and maintain it regardless, right? So most people have spent their whole life proving what doesn't work. And that's a good thing. It means that they're completely open to something, what I call new, right? New, recurring, right? New. Every moment in their life is new, right? If you're in fear of something, if you're anxious about something, you've taken something you've remembered in the past and you're projecting it into the future as if it's going to happen again, right? Your memories are, you've got memories and imaginings. Memories are past, imaginings are future. When you're present, you don't have either of those. This is what I talk about in depth in the book, about the 18 origins of thoughts, right? When you know how to stay present with the breath and the information that's coming in on the breath, you're not getting all the other information stored in your body and having that projected into the future, right? So if I ask you, how do you spell the word dictionary? There's a part of your awareness that goes in there, retrieves the information and spits it back out, all right? If I say, you know, you use the word anxiety, well, your brain's going to go in there, pick anxiety, and it's got everything that associates with anxiety. You can bypass that by putting a smile on your face and go, tell me everything that you associate with creativity. Tell me everything you associate with fun. Tell me everything you associate with beauty, goodness, freedom, love, bliss, immortality. You saturate yourself with all those frequencies and those words. Just drop all the dualistic paradigm once and for all. Put yourself on the path of purity. Honor the inevitability of it. Then you can embrace the effortlessness, and you're not having to do mental gymnastics about how to ward off threats and dangers, and how to control your impulses and urges and desires. You're beyond dualities of wants and desires and fears and desires. You just transcend the duality altogether, and you go back to the pureness of being what you are, honoring the fact that you've been made to be what you are, and you're here to do what you're here to do, and nothing and no one can ever limit that. Yeah. So in that sense, it's just a lack of purity, right? That's why purity is all or nothing. There's no degrees of purity. You're either purely aware that you are a divine instrument, which means you're empty, right? And I could tell you lots of stories about how the emphasis has to be on purity, which means you're still empty and silent. Yeah. Like an instrument, like my didgeridoo is not full of fears and desires, wondering when it's going to be played next, or have a favorite song. It doesn't have any preferences, right? We are instruments. We're not meant to have preferences. We have natures that are seeking expression, but that's what we've been made to be. The divine has configured us as unique beings to contribute to the diversity of its creation, the life. Yeah, we're not here to spend time helping each other, thwart disaster and speed up and accelerate our desires, right? We're not result orientated. The result is either successfully achieving a desire or abating a fear. That's all just mental gymnastics. We can bypass all that using the ADARA meditation techniques, and we can just put ourselves in a state of grace and feel ourselves instrumental to the moment. And that's indefinite, not just this lifetime, but onwards. Yeah, it is a true state of consciousness, not just a mental state or a physical state. Yeah. So, any other questions?
Catherine's just commented, awesome, Brian, thank you. Now, Natalie did have a question. Brian, do you really think that people can learn your entire book and live it completely without savant-like qualities that you have? Question mark.
I get asked that a lot.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Well, not only is it possible, but your thread of consciousness, it's inevitable.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where, again, like, there's two ways of answering that, right? Yes, I may have had a bump on the head which helped facilitate this, but at the end of the day, I've got no choice than to live a pure, simple, natural, holistic life, and you don't either, right? So whether you like it or not, the same laws, dynamics, and processes are at work within everybody, and it's our resistance to the purity, the resistance to the simplicity of it, which makes there's room for exceptions, exclusions, and excuses, right? I'm not exceptional, right? I've had all the disadvantages that comes with a brain injury, right? But at the same time, like I say, I say this very, very emphatically and clearly. Everybody has the same amount of energy. Everybody has the same potential to be intelligent, and everybody has the same ultimate potential, because that is the true nature of life. No one's got an advantage. Everything in the world is everyone's trying to gain an advantage, right? The benefit of knowing the nature of life is it brings it all into your life in the here and now. It helps you drop all the bullshit and carry on that you've been living with. It's taking you away from that state of peace. It helps you honor what's available to you now, everything that's making you be what you are, honor who and what and why and how you come to be here, and share the fullness of that, right? So this is where a lot of people will say, oh, Brian's the only one that can get this because they hit on the head. Well, it's actually not true, right? The simplicity of it is, again, I went to India and I had the masters drill me for all those years, and I was actually quite pissed off because it was so simple. I actually said, why couldn't you have just told me all this back in Australia without me having to, go over to India and go through the hardship of leaving everything and everyone to learn it all? It's like I needed the opportunity away from all the distractions to get anchored in that state before I went back into the world, right? So this is where even that's not necessary. The only reason why I needed that is because I was such an intensive care patient, and my life was so pathetic that I needed that time out. But this is where, if it's like Nisargadatta says, the word earnest. If you're earnest enough, you can bring the fullness of that grace into the here and now, irrespective of your circumstances, irrespective of your state, right? And this is where there are the three things the masters say: there's no exceptions, there's no exclusions, and there's no excuses, right? There's no exceptions. This is true all day, every day. No one's excluded just because you're handicapped or special or you're rich or something. Everybody's equal, and there's no excuses. Once you know the truth, there's no excuses for not living it. Yeah. And this is where when you strip it all back, a lot of people are looking at the payoffs as to what their attachments are in the world that's limiting them, because this is an unconditional offer that the universe is at your feet in every moment. And a lot of people are not feeling worthy and deserving of embracing that. And they're not feeling that they've got the right and permission to go away and act on it. Yeah. So this is part of, the master said, if you want the truth, bang, there it is on the chin. Yeah. And this is where, once you've woken up, you've got your swords drawn and you'll cut through anything and everyone that's going to limit you or restrict you away from being whole and complete. Yeah. So yeah, the answer is everybody's equal. It's all here and now. Anything else is just a delusion or illusion. Any other questions?
None in the chat box. So unless anyone's got something they want to quickly jump on and contribute via audio, now's the time. If not, I think we've been going a little over 2 hours. So
yeah,
Brian probably needs a rest, as do many of us.
Yeah. All righty. Well, how many we got on the call now?
27. So we've had a few
Okay.
drop off, but we got up to about 36 there on stage, I think. So.
All righty. Well, thank you, everybody. If there's no other questions, I will endeavour to get this book out as soon as possible, the ADARA Meditation one. And I will try and do another blog on what I've just covered today. I want to share the 6 facilitation exercises and a couple of the key things with people, just to silence the critics more. You know, like, there's so many people who are defensive about their beliefs in terms of meditation and you know, relaxation and all that sort of stuff. But you know, this has to be self-evident to everybody. Yeah. So.
And no doubt, obviously, when the borders are open and we're rocking and rolling, that we'll be doing this all live again. Brian on tour, so yeah, depending on what city you're listening in for, keep your ears to the ground and eyes on the posts coming up when that all happens. But in the meantime, it sounds like also we're going to have a few more Zoom sessions, perhaps to get a taste of it over digitally before actually doing it in person. Hey.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'll be doing events as soon as the lockdowns are over, and but I haven't really structured any dates or anything like that potentially. So, yeah. So, depending, I'll have a watch of this video, see if it's suitable for the public, and Mark and I'll probably release it tomorrow sometime if you want to watch back over it. So, I just have to be careful that I don't misrepresent myself, like I tend to do a lot. So other than that, well, it's great to have had the opportunity to share this with everyone. As you can see, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot more to come. And it's great to have connected with people I haven't seen for a long time, as well as all the new people. And those people who do know me, hopefully that will help you take that to a new depth and inspired everybody to keep earnestly moving forwards. So. And thank you again, Mark. Wonderful host. And yeah, so grateful to everybody, and we'll catch up with everyone soon.
Beautiful. Thanks, Brian. Everyone keep breathing and smiling. And again, much love, Brian. Thanks for everyone for being on, and we'll catch everyone next time.
Right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.